thoughts. Hopefully you do good things. Everybody has a competition in their brain of good thoughts and bad thoughts. Hopefully they win. The good thoughts win. For me, I always have both. I have like the thing I believe, the good thing. That's the thing I believe. And then there's this thing.
I'm pretty much convinced at this point that Wendy Williams is in fact a man. Now you may be asking yourself, that's a weird way to start the fucking podcast. And yeah, I know. But I felt like I needed to get right into it. Apparently she's been shaky again. I guess there was a possible fainting incident the other day. For those of you that have paid any attention to what's going on with Wendy Williams, or for those of you that are like, who the fuck is Wendy Williams? She's a TV host. I think she started out in radio, but she hosts the Wendy Williams show, I think it's called. I actually am a fan of her, but I'm convinced that she is in fact a dude. Just because she's kind of built like a I don't know, a linebacker. I don't know. Like if you put a fucking linebacker in a short dress and some high heels, and maybe gave him some long hair. I don't know. I mean, if she's a woman, she's attractive, and even if she's not a woman and she's just trans, well, she's attractive for a trans person. But she keeps having these fainting spells, and I'm not gonna pretend like I understand what people that are sort of doing the sort of crossover from one gender or one gender, right? Is that, or is it fucking I don't know. I assume there's a process, right? And I feel like it's a process that she's been going through for a long time. And for those of you who are like, what a fucking asshole. I'm just, I just float shit out there, for the sake of, entertainment. I mean, I'm just going off of what on the outside, what it looks like to me. She's got a very manly voice. She is built like she could probably kick many a dude's ass, including myself. And I don't know. She just has an aura of manliness. Oh God, is this really how I'm going to start the podcast? I don't know. Is this the first podcast of the week? Is it? I feel like I released one on Monday or Tuesday, one of those days, but it just the week has been a little, I don't know, it's been a weird week. It's been a cavalcade of excitement and what does cavalcade mean? I have no idea. I never get to use that word. Not that I've been sitting around waiting for my opportunity, but I felt like, I'm already about 3 or 4 minutes deep into sounding like a complete idiot. So, I might as well just start using words that I don't know the meanings to. Oh yeah, we got, I forgot to mention, there's been a huge development in the podcast over here. We have officially moved from our previous location at my dining room table to I am now sitting on the couch, broadcasting my idiocy. We felt like it was a necessary move. We feel more comfortable on the couch with our jammies on, and got my blanket wrapped around me, so to give you that full professional sort of vibe. I guess we understand now why I don't have any guests ever, because it's really just a dog and pony show over here. Well, I have a dog. I don't have a pony yet. I don't want a pony. I'm gonna let you guys in on a little fucking secret. Although it's not a secret. If you've been listening to this podcast for any amount of time, I'm sure I've mentioned it, but I have a huge fear of horses. I don't know. They're just they have that crazy fucking look in their eyes. It always looks like they're about to lose their shit, And I mean, you watch any video where a horse has kind of decided, fuck this and fuck you, every single time it's a fucking shit show. He's kicking, I saw one where a horse bit this lady's titty. I don't know. They got a very, they almost remind me of when you go to the zoo and you look at like the lions or the tigers, where they just have that look in their eye, like, you know what, if this fucking glass or these bars weren't here, I would fucking rip your face off. Horses have that exact same look. They look like they are on. I mean, they actually look. It's not that they look like they're on the verge of losing their shit. It looks as though they've already lost their shit, but they're trying their best to just keep it cool. And I don't want anything. I don't want any part of that. Fucking. For me, it's like it's spiders. As far as the rank of my fears. It's spiders, and then it's horses, and then after that it's I don't know, being falsely accused and sent to prison. Those are my top 3 fears. Speaking of prison, there's this fucking this YouTuber that I've been watching lately. You should check out his show. He is I don't know. There's some people that just have a sort of like a charisma that can just kind of suck you in, even though, what they're talking about isn't something that you'd think, oh, this is interesting shit. But it turns out that it is. The YouTuber, I don't know what his actual name is. I think it's Joe Guerrero or something. But the name of his show is the After Prison Show, where he basically talks about his experiences in prison. He puts a very comedic spin on it. He's got a crazy, like, over the top fucking accent. I think he's from like Virginia or some shit, but he puts on a good show there. I mean, he definitely sucked me in. I was just looking through, just random fucking videos, and I saw this shit and was like, yeah, what the fuck is that, And it turns out that it's very, very interesting, or not interesting. It's entertaining. I mean, it's interesting as well, but like I know that there's another guy that talks about his previous life in prison. It's some big black dude. I can't remember what his name is. And I mean, his show is interesting as well, but it's interesting in a different way. It's more like, it's more like a documentary. I wish I knew his name, or so I would definitely send people to check out his show. But I don't remember his fucking name. But this other guy, the After Prison Show, just watch it. It's fucking, dude makes it. He combines sort of scaring you, scaring the shit out of you as far as you never want to go to prison, but at the same time makes it, very entertaining. I definitely find myself laughing quite a bit. So check out his show. There's another guy that has really nothing to do with fucking prison at all, and I'm not even, I don't even know why or how I ended up on that guy's show or on his channel. I think, I know, because I keep hearing about, I guess there was some fucking meme or whatever where it's like some black dude is talking about being a fucking like a booty bandit in prison, and I was just looking for the video because I wanted a good laugh, and I think that's how I landed on this other guy's channel. But I don't know, it's like if you go to Wikipedia, if you look something up in Wikipedia, and if you're not careful, you could end up falling down the Wikipedia fucking black hole of information. YouTube is the exact same for me. It just like I'll watch one thing, and next thing you know, I'm like, I'll end up sitting there for 3 or 4 hours sometimes. I'll start off with with something that I was actually looking for, and 3 or 4 hours later, I'm learning how to fucking, I don't know, turn a toaster into a fucking, into a homemade drill or some shit. It's just, I don't know. I love YouTube, although it's really starting to, I don't know, starting to go down the tubes because they're, like I'm progressive, right, as far as my political views, and they're making it really difficult on the progressive news channels on YouTube. They're, demonetizing their shows. They're hiding them, as far as when you just when you type in a fucking keyword and shit, you know, they used to be at the top of the list as far as recommended shows, but then suddenly YouTube decided that anybody, that's actually on the left is somehow a fucking Putin puppet or whatever. Excuse me. So now it's making it difficult to find these shows. I mean, I'm subscribed to all of the ones that I would normally watch, but I don't know. Somebody needs to make a YouTube like social, or a YouTube like fucking website that kind of gives you all of the things that YouTube provides all the same things, but also gives you the stuff that YouTube won't let you have. Like, for some reason, you can't watch pornography on there. Now, I'm not saying that I would go to this channel for my pornography needs, but, I think it's kind of ridiculous. I don't mean like, people fucking, but like if somebody's topless or some shit, you can, if you don't cover it up or blur it out, I don't know. I mean, that's not the most important part. I think that what needs to be done is it needs to stop being corporate controlled. YouTube right now, I believe, is owned by Google. So whatever Google decides is appropriate viewing material, then, that's what you get. They need to just create a YouTube-like site where, if a channel makes, hundreds of, or gets hundreds of thousands of views, that, naturally they should be the one that's recommended, whether they are left, right, or whatever. I don't know. I don't want to turn this shit political. I was trying to stay away from that today, especially with the whole fucking shooting the other day. I mean, I was going to talk about that, but at this point, I don't think a conversation is possible anymore between people. At least one that's where people can actually be rational and actually discuss it. I mean, you got basically just the two extremes, right? You either have the hands off our guns, don't even think about telling me what I can do with, if I want to own a gun. And then on the other side, you have, let's get rid of all of the guns. I've proposed I've given my idea when it comes to gun ownership on this podcast plenty of times. I don't, I'm not one of these people that thinks you shouldn't own a gun. I'm 100% for gun ownership, but the screening process needs to be a lot fucking more intense than it currently is. I think that they obviously, I mean, when you drive a car, you actually have to demonstrate to the people at the DMV that you know how to drive that car. I think the same thing should be applied to purchasing a firearm or getting licensed to purchase a firearm. You should have to pass tests, and part of those tests need to be an actual, physical standing there in front of, an evaluator and demonstrate that you do know how to handle your weapon And I think that there needs to be, to some degree, a psychological evaluation. Not just does this person have a history of going ape shit, but what is their current mental status? Because a lot of people do have psychological problems, but won't seek treatment because of the stigma that follows it. So there needs to be a psych evaluation. There needs to be a demonstration that you know how to handle your weapon. There needs to be a better testing program. And I think that every year you do need to go back in and retest and take the psych evaluation all over again. I think that is only fair, considering there are children being murdered. I think it is only fair that maybe you actually show or demonstrate that you should own a weapon, and stop pretending like an amendment or whatever, or a right written 200 years ago or so, maybe more, I don't know. You need to stop pretending like when the founding fathers wrote that shit that they envisioned things like AR-15s and extended magazines and bump stocks and all this other ridiculous hardware that people are that have access to. You need to stop pretending like when they wrote that into the Bill of Rights that they weren't talking about, when they said a well-trained militia, they were talking about more or less, I assume. Now, obviously, it's up for, I don't know what the fucking word is, but they were more or less talking about the police or a military-like force, or something that would be able to resist a tyrannical government. They weren't talking about you and your fucking AR-15 and 9mm handgun. They weren't talking about that. They were talking about when there was an actual threat of government overthrow or a tyranny happening. They were not talking about you and your buddies sitting at fucking Denny's with your rifle strapped to your fucking back, where you get to pretend like you're in an episode or playing a live version of Call of Duty. They were not talking about that, and you know it. But since obviously outright outlawing fucking firearms is out of the question, I think that there needs to be some compromise here. That, okay, you can keep your weapons, but you need to pass stringent recurring tests and evaluations. And that when it comes to things like extended magazines, there's no need for that. I think that there needs to be some degree of compromise. And right now, it doesn't seem like people are even willing to even consider compromise. Everybody is convinced, whether they're on the right or they're on the left, they're convinced that like, what's the fucking strangest thing, right, is that I don't think that anybody, whether they're a fucking gun nut or they're somebody that thinks that gun ownership is ridiculous, I don't think either side is in favor of school shootings or mass shootings. I don't think either side is for them. I think everybody agrees that children being murdered isn't a good thing. The problem is that nobody wants to actually have a conversation, and when they do attempt to have a conversation, it usually involves hurling insults at one another. Calling anybody that owns a gun a gun nut, or anybody that's against gun ownership a liberal fucking snowflake. It doesn't it doesn't make for capable conversation. You can't have a conversation with somebody if you're starting from the very beginning hurling insults at one another. The other thing is that both sides need to acknowledge that, yes, you do, the people that are 100% for gun ownership, you have to acknowledge that you do have a degree of gun nuttery in your ranks. There are people that would definitely classify as gun nuts. Not everybody that owns a weapon is a gun nut, but you do have them. And the people on the left need to realize that you do have some liberal fucking snowflakes that, have actually convinced themselves that if they just made guns illegal, that, all the problems go away. The problem isn't gun ownership. The problem is, first and foremost, the screening process, but it's also the psychological unbalance that has been fostered in this country for millennia, where everybody is afraid of the fucking boogeyman. Even though, even currently, if you actually look up the statistics, you will find that we've never been safer. And yet everybody pretends as if the boogeyman is outside hiding behind the tree, either waiting to break into your home or snatch your child. And the statistics and the data just doesn't support that. So you need to, if anything is going to change in regards to the way guns are handled in this country, is you gotta change the psychological makeup of people. But obviously that's a huge task. So to start, there needs to be some sort of there needs to be gun reform. At least when it comes to the testing and ownership process and getting a license and psychological evaluation, that needs to exist. If there is anybody that is a 100% Second Amendment warrior, can you please explain to me, if you disagree with that, you have to give me your reasons why. Because I think we can both agree that mentally unstable people should not have access to weapons. I think we both agree that a responsible gun owner should be able to demonstrate that they actually know how to use that gun. I think we both agree that in order to get a license, you should have a background check. The only place that the only area I can see that you may disagree with me, but I don't think you would, is the psych evaluation of somebody's current mental state, and not just relying on what records say or don't say. I think that most responsible gun owners agree with that. So the question is why can't we have that conversation? I think, I know why we can't have the conversation, because the moneyed interest in the firearms business is too strong. Every time these shootings happen, the first thing out of at least from the news outlets on the right, the first thing is, let's not politicize this. Let's give the families a chance to to mourn or to deal with their loss. We should be offering our prayers and well wishes, and then we'll talk about gun reform. But the problem is that never happens, right? What happens is we have a shooting, and everybody gets upset, and everybody says, don't politicize it, we'll talk about it later. And then another shooting happens, and we never have the conversation. It's the same thing with with the Black Lives Matter movement, and kneeling, in football games, in protest of police brutality. It's always, no, we'll talk about it later. This is not the right time. But the problem is that after the football game, nobody wants to talk about it anymore. Or if they do want to talk about it, they want to talk about how, either you should kneel or you're somehow insulting, the country and troops and this horrific shit that has nothing to do with the actual point of kneeling. There never seems to be a right time to actually discuss anything. So at some point, people have to just be like, okay, yeah, this tragedy happened. Something needs to be done about it. I think, at least what I proposed, I think is fair. That you should have to be tested every year. That you should have to have a psych evaluation upon purchase and, every year. That the testing process needs to be more than a 20, 30 multiple choice question that basically asks should you point the gun at your own self. I mean, I've taken the test. I've been licensed to own a firearm. I know that test is bullshit. And anybody that owns a firearm, at least in California, I don't know, obviously, I didn't own a gun when I lived in Boston. Just because I was too young. But, the fucking questions are ridiculous. The fact that you can come in, read the pamphlet for like 15 minutes and then take a test and be licensed to carry a firearm is ridiculous. There needs to be stricter testing. There needs to be stricter background checks. There needs to be a psychological evaluation. There needs to be a demonstration that you know how to handle your weapon. And that needs to take place every year or every other year. If you disagree with it happening every year, because obviously you don't always have to retest when you get approved or when you renew your driver's license. But the thing is that you have access to something that was designed to kill. So you should be tested regularly. I don't think anybody can make an argument against that. I don't currently own a firearm, but I don't want somebody telling me that I can't. But I'd also would like that somebody would make sure that if I do decide to own one or to buy one, I wouldn't make that big of a deal, somebody asking or, that there's a fucking process to it other than, we'll look at your fucking background. And if nothing in your background says that, or if no red flags are fucking raised, well, then there you go. I mean, the kid, the one that fucking shot up the church. I mean, there was like a mistake or something in the system as far as when they were doing the background check, and unfortunately where they live, they have something like error by default or some shit where where they assume that the error is just an error and they give you the gun anyway. It turns out that had that error not been made for, what was his name, Dylan Roof, that he never would have been approved to own a firearm. I think we can all agree that there definitely needs to be, a lot of hoops that people should have to jump through in order to own something that was designed to kill. Because let's not pretend like a gun serves any other purpose than to kill. Now, what you kill with that weapon is, can be up for debate, but let's not pretend like those guns were not built specifically for a particular reason. I think everybody can agree that gun reform needs to happen. And, well, I already fucking said it, God, I said I wasn't going to talk about this shit. I don't know. It drives me up the fucking wall every time these things happen, especially when it happens to children, and immediately the tribalism takes over, and everybody fucking draws their fucking line in the sand, and it's like, I refuse to budge in any way, and then the insults get thrown into the mix, and then nothing ever happens. I've said it before in previous podcasts that I am of the mindset that you either want to solve the problem or you don't. And it seems like people on both sides don't really have a sincere desire to solve the problem. I think what actually happens is people think it's more important to sort of virtue signal and insult other people so that they can feel whether it's morally superior or intellectually superior or testicular fortitude superior. I don't know. I don't know what people's problems are, but something needs to be done, and it needs to be done now. Not later. I'm sorry, fucking prayers and well-wishing, it doesn't bring dead people back. It doesn't solve the problem. You can pray day, from morning or from sun up to sundown that that an active shooter doesn't come on to your child's campus. You can pray, sun up to sundown that won't happen, but that isn't going to stop it from fucking happening. And the answer is not. And I cannot believe people still make this or still say this stupid shit. The answer is not let's give everybody more guns. More guns are not going to solve the problem. What's going to solve the problem is a DMV-like process towards gun ownership. That is what's going to solve the problem. Now, obviously, the it's not like, having the DMV, prevents, car accidents, or it prevents some dipshit, from getting drunk and killing a bunch of people. Yes, I understand that there are some, there's some things that just can't be fucking helped, but at least you don't have people that have no idea how to control the fucking automobile out on the road. I mean, they have, there are some people out there with some definitely questionable driving skills. I'll make the same argument for getting a driver's license. The testing process needs to be revamped. I think that the driving portion of the written portion, I don't know if it should be done away with completely, but I definitely feel like it needs to be, the tests need to be more relevant to the type of driving you intend to do. When I got my license, I was asked a bunch of questions about the stopping distance of a fucking tractor trailer or some shit. And it's like, I'm 16. I'm not planning to fucking buy or drive a big rig. I just want to go to my house or to my friend's house or occasionally to the mall or something like that. I'm not, I'm not fucking Smokey the Bandit or whatever, fucking. The questions were completely irrelevant to the type of driving that I was going to do. So that needs to be revamped. I also think that the driving test, it needs to be an all-day thing. And, it needs to, you need to demonstrate that you can, drive your car safely in all situations. A drive around the block and learn, and doing a 3-point turn is not really sufficient. You need to know how to drive on the street. You need to know how to merge in and out of traffic. One of the things, at least here in California, the thing that drives me up the fucking wall, although it's worse in fucking Boston, but is the people that don't know the rules to merging onto a freeway, right? The way that you're supposed to merge onto a freeway, if you, the person that's actually on the freeway already, they don't have to yield to you. They shouldn't have to, because they are moving at freeway speeds. People that are merging onto the freeway, on the other hand, haven't quite reached freeway speeds, which means you must yield to the freeway traffic. But for some reason, at least in this state, nobody seems to understand that, and you'll have people that, you'll be going 60, 70 miles an hour, and then you'll have somebody merge in that's only moving about 40 and damn near cause a fucking pile up. There needs to be testing on that. There needs to be, testing on how you're supposed to drive in a parking lot with people. There needs to be a clear explanation of the right of way. I can't think of every single scenario, but there needs to be a more extensive, testing process. I think that they're also, if they can figure out a way to do it, they need to also, test different driving conditions. At least here in California, these people, they don't seem to, they get rain. Rain happens every year, but for some reason, they forget every fucking season how to drive in the rain. And you got a lot of people that you can tell obviously have no concept about tire grip. I think a lot of people have watched a lot of movies and, action movies and stuff where cars go skidding out of control. I'm not saying that, obviously you need to reduce your speed based on conditions, but there's some people that act as if they just gave a little bit more gas, I think they have it in their heads that they are going to slide out of control. The tires were designed to handle rain. That's why they have the treads. That's why they have the patterns that they do. They're designed to handle rain. So you can go a little bit faster. You can take that corner a little bit faster. I'm not saying that you do it at the same speed during dry conditions, but you can definitely speed up a little bit more. There needs to be an updated testing process for driving, and there definitely needs to be an actual testing process for gun ownership, considering the fucking deadly repercussions of pretending like the current system is working. I don't know. If I really spent fucking half an hour talking about this shit, what do I want to talk about? Is anybody still talking about the Trumps Blue Apron idea for basically screwing the poor out of? I don't get it anymore. And somebody made a very interesting point, right? Because I know I can understand, or I see what their logic is, if you want to call it logic. They have convinced themselves that people that are on welfare, that they basically take that money and use it unwisely. They buy shit that they don't need. Now, am I saying that there aren't people like that exist? No, obviously there are some people that that definitely treat the social safety net system that we have very lackadaisical. They maybe they don't look for a job, or they do stupid shit like spend their benefits on shit that you don't really, or that they really can't afford. There are some people like that, but a majority of the people that use these sort of benefits, they're just trying to survive, and this idea that, instead of giving you, they don't even give you money anymore. It's I believe it's like they give you like a credit card or some shit. But I see where Trump and the Republicans and the people on the right are coming from, because they assume that the only reason that you need SNAP or welfare is because you somehow have failed at being able to handle money. That they completely dismiss the fact that a lot of people work very hard. Some people have 3-4 jobs and still are under the poverty line and still need some assistance. It seems to me that Trump and others like him are convinced that the people that are on welfare or that use SNAP are just lazy. And they feel like, well, instead of giving you some money that, we assume you're going to waste and buy a fucking big screen TV with, we're just going to send you a box of food. But the problem is that they're only sending them canned food, things that are not perishable. Well, you still need things like fresh vegetables. Somebody made a very interesting point, that what about the people that are on welfare that are Jewish and require their foods to be kosher? What about people that are vegetarians or that are allergic to particular things? Are they going to take into account any of this when delivering their boxes of canned goods? And what happens if something happens and those boxes of canned goods aren't delivered? Are people supposed to just not eat? It's insulting that they think that basically they're saying, you know what, let me fucking do the shopping for you. Let me just tell you what I think you should eat. Let me just eliminate any sort of healthy food that you could have purchased with the money we were giving you. Why don't I'll give you a bunch of canned fucking peas and Spam, and you'll just have to make do until you get off your lazy ass and actually work for your food. I mean, that is their perspective on things. And the fact that people are not rioting in the streets is amazing to me. I know why like certain groups on the right don't do it, because they have convinced themselves that the only people that use SNAP or are on welfare are people of color. They're convinced of that, even though if they actually looked up the statistics, they will see that a majority of people that are on welfare or that take advantage of those benefits are actually white. But whatever. It boggles my mind that this is even being proposed. I mean, it is absolutely. I mean, it's in the realm of just cruelty, right? You're basically saying, you know what, your lives don't really matter that much, and we're gonna do whatever we can to not help you in, as much. It's the bootstrap theory that goes on in this country. This idea that if you are poor or homeless or whatever, it's because you fail to pull yourself up by your own bootstraps. It completely dismisses, things like societal or systemic racism or systemic, classism, or the fact that the companies can get away with paying a minimum wage that really doesn't even give you enough to even survive on. I mean, it dismisses societal problems and the things that led to people being on welfare or in needing these benefits. It dismisses a lot of things that cause it, and just assumes that the only reason that you're not a millionaire is because you're lazy. It's fucking insanity that 2018 people still have this idea that if you're poor, that somehow you're a failure as a human being, and just completely dismiss that we have corporations basically making decisions politically. I don't know. It's just it's fucking mind-boggling. And the fact that people are not not in the streets rioting and fucking livid at this shit it's even more mind-boggling, because I think most people think that this is horrific, and yet there's nobody in the fucking streets. So I don't know. It is what it is. I'm not trying to bum everybody out on a fucking Friday. I mean, I started off fucking talking out my ass about trans people, and then it moved to school shootings, and now I'm talking about fucking poor hungry people. It just I try and brighten your days. I try and uplift you. That's what we do here at the effing podcast. By the way, I'm still thinking of changing the name. I'm just not sure what. To what? I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to change it to. Or maybe I'll leave it alone. I don't know. It's just the effing podcast, it just, I don't know. It's lost its luster as far as a name for a podcast. It seems very like I didn't put any thought into it, which is actually true. I just, because I say fuck a lot, I was like, it makes sense. But can you guys hear that shit? Look, my dog's starting to fucking dream. Hear him? Hear him? Shh, Mama. Hey. Shh. Hey. It always sounds like he's being abused in his sleep. I don't know. Like, sometimes I hate this microphone because it picks up everything. Like, I'm not sure if you guys can hear. My neighbor has he's got a what do you call it, leaf blower, and I can hear. I mean, like it Momo, shh, quiet. It's cool. I mean, obviously I have a decent fucking microphone, but sometimes it drives me up the wall, especially while trying to edit this podcast, because there's just it picks up fucking everything. Shh. Dog. For those of you that are curious about my little setup here, as far as when I'm putting together this podcast, I don't know. I've got a Neewer, Neewer studio microphone, and it comes with a little. It came with a like a fucking stand. It's a little tiny thing. My mixer is the Behringer Zenny X 1204 USB. What else? I got my fucking. I don't even know what these headphones are. I like them. They're sort of noise canceling. What the fuck? Who makes them? I got to take them off in order to look at them. Hold on a second, people. What is it? Oh, they're Behringer HPS 3000. They're decent. They're comfortable. There's definitely noise canceling. I can put them on even if I'm not making the podcast. I put them on like when my kids are being incredibly too loud. I mean, it doesn't completely block out the noise, but it definitely turns the volume way down. And then I don't know what else. I think that's pretty much it. I mean, I have everything connected to my laptop, and I use fucking Audacity to record and edit this fucking podcast. So for those of you that are like, how can I get into the podcast game? That's pretty much what I use. Obviously, there are much more top of the line setups. I think this entire thing cost me the mic, the mixer, the headphones. I think I spent somewhere in the neighborhood of $300, something like that. It's very inexpensive. So if you are trying to, when did this podcast turn into a fucking commercial? I don't know. This is what I use. If you're one of these people that's like, I feel like I can really bring something to the podcast game, but I don't know where to fucking start. Well, there you go. Do I need the mixer? Not really. I mean, the Audacity fucking app allows you to, fucking edit and mix to a degree. which is actually, that's how I used to do this podcast. I didn't have a mixer, but then I decided, maybe I'll take it up a little, take it up a notch as far as my professionality. That's a word, right? I don't know what the fuck I'm talking about anymore. I'm gonna end this fucking podcast. It is Friday. This is the effing podcast for those of you that have been listening this entire time and have no idea what you're listening to. This is the effing podcast. I usually do a couple of these a week, usually Tuesdays and Thursdays. Occasionally I, throw a bone and add an extra fucking episode, or occasionally I don't know. Sometimes I drop a fucking podcast on Monday and not Tuesday. It's really just a big surprise. Is what I'm getting at. You never know what to expect with this podcast. But anyway, I hope you've had a good week. It's the weekend coming up. Those of you with kids, I'm assuming that next week they're off the entire week, thanks to fucking bunch of dead fucking presidents. So my sympathies are with you as far as the havoc that's going to be. I always hate it when, it's nice having my kids home sometimes, but when it's like a week, 2 weeks, you can only come up with so many fucking activities before you just like, get the fuck out of here, go play in the fucking front yard, or run in the street. I don't know, just get the fuck out of my face. But I don't know. Anyways, fucking yeah, so I hope you had a good week, hope you're having a good weekend, and I'll talk to you again next week sometime. All right, just like always, don't take any shit and go fuck yourself. Peace.